Welcome to the Lake County Historical Society podcast. Where we are preserving the history of Lake County, one story at a time.
All right, and welcome to another episode of our podcast. My name is David Zanni. I am your host. I am here today with a very important guest. It's a great honor to have him here. Brigadier General Tim Sullivan. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of some of his accomplishments. He assumed the duties as Deputy Commander of Joint Force Headquarters in St. Augustine in 2005. He has also served as the Commander of the 83rd Troop Command in Tallahassee. He holds a Master of Strategic Studies from the U.S. Army War College and a Bachelor of Arts degree from the Citadel. He's received a regular Army commission from the Citadel in 1976, 4 years active duty as a Pershing missile officer in Germany. Since 1985, he's been a member of the Florida National Guard, two-term Lake County Commissioner, Fruitland Park Commissioner and Mayor, Lake County School Board, and many awards and decorations, including the Bronze Star. Sir, thank you for coming on the show today, and thank you for your service. It's quite cool to have you here.
Thank you. Well, that's the history, so.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I want to get into some of this. So before we get into all this interesting stuff, one of my favorite movies is Gettysburg.
Right.
Now that's based off of a book called The Killer Angels from 1974. And there's a quote that comes from the book that they use in the movie. And this is the quote. And I wanted to get your take on it. There's nothing so much like a god on earth as a general on a battlefield.
That's very appropriate for the Civil War. Generals today fight on the strategic level and not so much on the tactical level. But if you have ever been to Gettysburg, and if you haven't,
I have, yeah.
I've been there 3 or 4 times.
It's an amazing place.
It's an amazing place. And you could see where somebody could get that quote just by everything that was going on.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, and there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, when you're, my commands, I had 3,500 soldiers working with me when I was in Kuwait the second time.
Yeah.
When you have that much, and I don't like to use the word power, but you have that many people working toward a similar goal, it's an awesome,
yeah.
It's an awesome responsibility,
yeah.
But it's also an awesome authority that you have,
yeah.
to execute your mission.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that mission has to get down to the lowest level so that people understand where you're going and what you're trying to accomplish.
You really have to think of every level of that mission and
right.
how it's going to affect all the different,
right.
what I mean, the command going from the top all the way down to the bottom.
Right.
And I could see, in the Civil War, it was even more intense, probably,
absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, because it was so much on the ground. I mean, you were literally there, and the action's all around you. I mean, if you've done Pickett's Charge, and you just even today you can walk up there and you can see the obstacles that they had
the rocks, the cliffs,
and
that was one of my favorite spots when I went to Gettysburg.
Yeah.
was that part. And I watched the movie. Made sure I watched the movie just a few days before so I can have everything fresh in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing, and it's just and think about the time. I mean, back in those days, you could be standing there, and your buddy could take a shot to the head just right beside you, just like in any combat, and you weren't that far apart that you didn't see. You could see the enemy.
Yeah,
I mean, it was right there on top of it.
The whites in their eyes.
Yeah,
because the firearms back then just didn't have the type of range.
And they had the mass fire. You had to have people standing next to each other, standing up, which made them a wonderful target.
Yeah.
And just.
Yeah, and the smoke must have been incredible.
Oh, yeah,
it was just, I mean...
And the cries and the horses and anybody that wants to know how tough war is, go to Gettysburg and take, get one of the guides and walk. I mean, it's just a wild place.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. That's the way to say it.
Yeah, definitely unbelievable. And Gettysburg, the film Gettysburg does an excellent job in capturing all the different, and they actually they present General Lee, and I don't know, he's quite a respectable gentleman. You know what I mean? And Martin Sheen did an excellent job in portraying him. Okay, yeah.
But not to bring up, but another movie that
yes,
way
please.
is, Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, please. Oh, one of my excellent all-time favorite films.
That was.
Oh my God, yeah.
Just amazing. I mean, I took my own experiences about how the captain, the ranger guy, and everybody thought he was a gung-ho full-timer, and he goes, I'm a teacher in high school, and they're going, wow, this ain't but he had a job to do, and he had to go do it.
Yeah. I love, that's another one of my favorite films. I mean, the opening scene of the landing on Normandy is the D-Day invasion is unlike anything ever seen on film. I mean, it's really they really truly captured what that was like. I mean, there's some haunting imagery of the guy who's looking around and picks his own arm up. You know what I mean? And there's just it's an unbelievable film.
I didn't mean to get us off track.
No, please. There is no tracks here. I'm interested. I'm kind of a military history nerd in a way. I love learning, and so to be here with the general and be able to go back and forth about some of these things is an awesome experience. I think our listeners, not viewers, I think our listeners will enjoy this as well. World War II is, I mean, they're all fascinating, but World War II is like, these were school teachers. These were guys who just worked in their community, and this, that, and the other thing. Normal men, and the world, the country called on them for duty, and they all kind of like stepped up. And
39% of the population was directly involved in the war effort in World War II. 39%. I mean, that's where Rosie the Riveter and all that comes from. Because my parents served during World War II.
Okay,
and my dad was a combat wounded veteran who met my mom, who was a nurse and was an officer. So
that's a classic. Can I ask where your father was serving?
He was an Army Air Corps guy.
Oh, and, wow!
Served during World War II and got out. So,
Man, it's those that. Well, they don't call them America's greatest generation for no reason. They truly were America's greatest generation. I revere my grandparents. Sadly, they're not here anymore. Both my grandfathers were in World War II. One was in Battle of Guadalcanal and infantry, and saw some stuff, as my family say. Never talked about it, but
my dad never talked about it.
They never talked about it, but you can only imagine. And here we are today. Now we are able to live in a beautiful country and world. Well,
Absolutely.
We need to keep a beautiful country and keep a beautiful world. But yeah, they delivered us something amazing. So okay, let's bring this back to the beginning. I'm interested to learn about your years at the Citadel. Now, I was not too familiar with the Citadel. I did some research on it. It's the senior military college in Charleston that was established in 1842. Is it fair to say that this is the West Point of the South?
I would rather call West Point the Citadel of the North.
Okay, fair enough. But we can look at them as
it's
counterparts.
Huge tradition. The Citadel was started back during the 1860s as a land branch college, and maybe you've heard of Clemson. Clemson was also a land grant college, but the Citadel maintained its military status, and it's amazing the people who passed through there on their way to careers, and during World War II they basically had to shut down because so many of them went to war, and many of them who became general officers. But to me, it was a family tradition. I have 3 older brothers. 2 out of the 3 went to the Citadel before me.
So there's a family legacy there. It's a tradition. It's an amazing thing.
Right.
And the name Citadel is really cool. I mean, it evokes a vision of a stronghold, of military stronghold from the ancient days. You know what I mean? Which is super cool. So. So the president of our society mentioned that when you were becoming a general, and I don't know if this is from Citadel or some of your other training, but they have something that's called a charm school for generals. I thought that was fascinating because obviously if you're becoming a general, it's a big deal, and there's a lot to learn, and you think, okay, it's all about troop command, and it's about military strategies and all these things, and there's also, they need to teach you like PR, public relations, because you're going to be interviewed, you're going to be questioned, right? Is that what charm school kind of was?
Well, yeah, and it was in Washington. They once you're selected, then that's what we call it. We call it charm school.
I love that. You
go up there for a week. I don't remember all the time.
What's the official name of the class?
Well, it's a general officer orientation,
Okay.
basically, is what it is.
Okay.
So the first very night that you're there, it's social event. Civilian clothes. You don't really know who you're talking to. So I got there a little early.
Okay.
I'm sitting here talking to a guy who happened to just be the chief of staff of the United States Army, a
Okay.
4-star.
And you didn't know that,
And I didn't know who he was.
because he doesn't wear any type of
Right,
identification.
we're all in civilian clothes, but he knew who I was when I introduced myself because he knew everybody that was going to come to this.
Oh wow! So
And
that's a
so-
real, almost like a masquerade ball in a way.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it was a way to break the ice.
Yeah.
That, we're all in this together, and
Okay, yes.
It's and my wartime experience. I mean, for instance, when I went to the Army War College as a National Guardsman, I already had 2 combat tours under my belt.
Wow.
And I had more combat time than all of my classmates.
Yeah.
You
Wow. All right. So you
And
already had
so-
some on-the-job
and
training.
here I am, a National Guardsman.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting. The Guard and the Reserve and the active duty is all one integrated force.
Yeah.
And to be successful, it has to be that way.
Oh, you certainly, yeah.
Right.
I want to add, so we'll get back to this. I want to learn a bit more about those combat situations you mentioned. Go ahead, yeah.
The big thing about the charm school,
Yeah.
and we had all the 4-stars come and talk to us, and the one thing, the theme was, don't change what got you to where you are.
Fair enough, because what your own internal motor got
Right.
you to your
Right.
place of
That-
hard work and discipline.
Right, and that now that you are a general
Yeah.
officer, people are going to approach you differently. You're going to have people around you that want to maybe take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And those kind of things.
They get you prepared. It's almost similar to a course that in some respects, the NBA gives some of their players about how to. All of a sudden now these guys are worth $50 million.
All right.
And it's like they kind of teach them, hey, there's going to be some people coming out of the woodwork, this, that, and the other thing, and they get them prepared for this higher level they're about to enter.
Absolutely.
And that's certainly a general is a similar situation because you guys are all just ordinary guys, right? And you went
Right.
into the Army and whatever you went into, and then you've rose because of your discipline and your servitude to the country. You've rose through the ranks, and now you're here. And it's like, wow, could you ever think when you were a young boy that you were going to be a general one day?
Oh heck no! As a matter of fact, when I went into the National Guard, I was new in my career as a financial advisor and with Prudential, and I said, well, heck, I can go in the National Guard, which I enjoyed the military, so it wasn't that, but I said, I can go in the National Guard and 15 more years, get a pension out of it. If I can, all I got to do is make lieutenant colonel.
Yeah, here you are, Brigadier General.
And
Yeah.
I just went through the ranks, took the hard jobs, and
You took to it. You really enjoyed it.
oh yeah, it was such a difference from what I do it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And my experience at the Citadel, my experience on active duty, all of those aided me in my progression through the ranks.
Certainly. That was something that actually you forgot to mention in your, I was so focused on all your stuff that you did military community-wise, but you're also an established financial business person. And,
Right.
and that's
Yeah.
what, so you've done, that's one of the beautiful things about America. People have success in their private business life, and they go on to serve the country in other ways, military, government, and it's George Washington, it's like, that's kind of his story, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
he's-
It's a great example. I mean, and when you think about it, probably he was the greatest general of all times because he understood the civilian versus the military, and
Yeah.
as the commander in chief, and it's just a very
Well, I want to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about George Washington because it's a good segue, and he's one of my favorite guys to speak about. I was going to ask you, who is your favorite? This is like a 7th grade social studies question, but who is your favorite general? If it's not George Washington, we could talk about whoever it is in a moment. Mine is George Washington. Okay. Who is your favorite general?
Well, that was probably the toughest question that you briefed me on.
All right, interesting. Okay.
And because I served with, from Tommy Franks, and people I got to know as an individual, but I think maybe Eisenhower.
Well, okay. Well, that's certainly a good pick. a monster in his field. I mean,
and went on to become president of the United States and carried that wartime experience with him to shape the military and shape the way we react.
You know what? I never gave. It's true. He must have really admired George Washington quite a bit. There's quite a similarity between both their two stories. I need to go back and learn actually a bit more about Eisenhower. I think.
I mean, and I say that because it's more modern times.
No, of course, no, certainly, yeah. And it's more relatable. We have more information. We have more. It's like we have more of a window into the person's mind and stuff like that, which we don't have too much from George Washington. We can read his letters and stuff like that. So yeah, no, it's super interesting with George Washington. You know, one of my friends once asked me late at night at a party, if you could have any person's face tattooed on, you had to. If they put a gun to your head and they said you have to have some person's face tattooed to your body, all right, whose face would it be? And without a second thought, I said George Washington.
Wow.
He's the only person that I would have tattooed. I mean, I wouldn't do that in general, but if I had to pick, you know what I mean? So one of the interesting things about George Washington, there's a story out there, and I tried to look into the legitimacy of this story, and I couldn't really confirm it one way or another, but there is some sort of mutual respect, certainly, between King George III, who was King of England at the time of the Revolution, and George Washington. There was a story that the court painter of England, for King George, his name was Benjamin West. King George III asked Benjamin West, what will George Washington do next now that he has won the war or something or other? And Benjamin West told him that, well, he served 2 years as president, now he's stepping down. He's going back to his private life. Mm-hmm. And King George III said, if he does that, he will be the greatest man in the world.
Wow.
And I just thought that was a kind of now I wasn't able to find if this is definitely true. Some sources say that this is just like a cute story. Some sources say that this happened, but all sources agree that there was a mutual respect between King George and General George, President George Washington.
Yeah. And, I mean, England never thought that we would go anywhere.
Yeah.
And actually during the war, some of the tactics we used just build on that bravado that they were too good, that we were just going to run roughshod over the Americans.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting. It's what makes.
That's some good reading, though, if you want to read about the Civil or the Revolutionary War and tactics, and the movie The Patriot is.
Oh, The Patriot is great. Yeah, with the Mel Gibson, right?
Yeah,
The Revolutionary War is one of my favorite things to learn about. I'm from New York, so when I was living in New York, I was always making my rounds. I went to the Delaware Crossing site. I would try to go there a couple times a year and stand there and just look at the where he crossed the Delaware River. The place. It's on the tip of my tongue. In New Jersey, on Christmas Eve, where they struck them out on Christmas Eve at night with the Hessian troops. So learning about all those things, and he's kind of running around, kind of losing a lot of battles, kind of running from one place to another. It's almost a little comical. God bless him. All right, so you know what? So what else I want to tell you? I want to ask you about your experiences with the Patriot Guard riders.
Oh, wow. I'll be glad to talk about that.
Yeah, all right, excellent. Just for our guests, I'll say that they were established in 2005. They're an organization that attends the funerals of the members of the U.S. military and first responders at the family's request, and it helps to protect mourners from harassment. And it also greets troops returning from overseas and performs other volunteer work. Is that fair to say?
Yep, they're a great group of individuals. What people don't know is, as a general officer, one of my duties was to present the flag to the families of soldiers killed in combat.
Oh my God, that's a heavy duty.
Yeah, it's the most toughest and most honorable thing I ever did. Period. So, my very first one was in Altamont Springs, and it was an active duty soldier, and I was filling in, so I had about a half a day notice that they needed me to cover this for someone.
Yeah. And
so I showed up. I don't have an entourage. It's just me in uniform. We had the color guard, so to speak.
Okay.
But I didn't know any.
And what is
of
the
them.
color guard?
That was the guys who actually carried the casket and folded the flag
Okay.
and do on. And so, but I remember rolling up, and it was early in the morning. The program or the funeral actually started at 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, and there's all these protesters across the street, with signs about baby killers and all this, and I was mad as a hornet, but I didn't have any resources to do anything about it.
Yeah, I love mad as a hornet. What a great way to put that.
And not just that, because they were disrespecting the family.
Of course. No,
the
certainly,
family
I agree.
And
we can all protest. It's a
Right.
free country. You should be able to. But they specifically do it at the funerals to try to inflict pain on the mourners and the families, and that's wrong.
so we're there across the street, and I hear this rumble coming down the road.
Yeah.
It's the Patriot Guard.
Oh,
And they ride by them about 2, maybe 3 times, and they disappear.
I love it.
So
And they came in like the cavalry.
yeah, they came in like motorcycles, and then we left there and came to the National Cemetery, and they escorted us there. And as a matter of fact, the Orlando Sentinel published a picture of me saluting the Patriot Guard behind the. I was walking from. We had the hearse, and the Patriot Guard was lined up behind them, and I saluted them as I walked to my car to make that trip. So
Wow. And that's so. And then have you worked with them all the time?
I've worked with. Well, I did that. I did over 12 times did I
Wow.
do the flag presentation.
That's like I said, that's some heavy duty stuff. Yeah, to be able to honor the parents or the family members and provide some protection against these kind of No, that's excellent. I knew that there was some sort of organization that protected that. I didn't know they were called the Patriot Guard Riders.
Yep.
It's a really cool name. You know what I mean? God bless them. So
And most of them are Vietnam veterans. A lot of Vietnam veterans. A lot of veterans involved with that, and that's what it's about. It's not about them. It's not about. It's just honoring those people who gave the ultimate sacrifice.
the ultimate sacrifice. Exactly. Yeah, certainly. And I'm sure people can Google them, visit their website if they're interested in making donations, or I'm sure they need all the help they can get, and you know what I mean. And God bless them.
And I know many of those guys. They show up at veterans events and those kind of things, and they're a great group of people.
They need that, because that's great stuff.
Yep.
So I guess what else? There's so much stuff that I want to ask you, and I don't want to get out of lose my track of stuff. So I also have you served as the commander of the 83rd Troop Command in Tallahassee. So can you tell us a bit about that experience?
The 80 Troop. Basically, the 83rd Troop Command was a higher headquarters for units that didn't have a higher headquarters.
Okay.
So, for instance, I had a Special Forces Battalion, Engineering Battalion, a Logistics Battalion.
And it's usually not like that.
Right.
It's usually what? You usually just have one type of...
Right.
Okay.
So if you're artillery, you got an artillery brigade headquarters, and they provide all that. Well, when you got all these individual units like that, and the National Guard, so while I was a deputy commander, I was tasked out to the 83rd Troop Command to do that. And what's interesting about that is I had already done 2 tours, but every unit assigned to me got deployed during my time, my 3 years in that position.
Wow. And so this was during Operation Iraq Freedom?
Right.
Okay.
During Iraqi Freedom.
All right. Wow. So when you have all these different units that you're dealing with, you really get well acclimated with all the different working parts of the military, right? You learn.
And as you go up through the ranks, you do that, because for instance, you have my command time in the desert was with a logistics brigade.
Okay.
I was a 50th Area Support Group. They had never been deployed.
Wow.
Okay.
They're all newbies. Is that what you would call them, or not?
Well, not newbies. been around for a long time.
They just never went.
They just never went.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And so, but I had 3,500 soldiers assigned to that of all different types. I mean, I had infantry battalions. Because I did all the force protection and all the logistics for when 125,000 soldiers came out of Iraq and went into Iraq during that period of time.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's like any other institution. I had been there just about 15 months before that. I had left during my first tour, and so I made connections during that period of time. And as a matter of fact, my orders for the 50th got changed. We were supposed to go into another command, and anyway, our orders got changed, so we ended up in Kuwait working directly under the 3rd Army. Well, when I got there, I found out that the new chief of staff of 3rd Army was one of my guys that I had met when I was there with the 32nd Army Air Missile Defense Command. And so he looked at it and said, well, you know, we're a higher headquarters. We get the best of the best.
Yeah.
And that's what made it all work.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So that's a good segue into what we were talking about before. You mentioned your 2 tours.
Yeah.
2 tours in Iraq or Afghanistan. Where were your 2 tours?
Both. I went to Kuwait both times.
Okay.
Yeah, I was with 3rd Army Headquarters, which is the Army component for all the Army forces in the Middle East.
Yeah. So give us some insight into Kuwait. What is it kind of like there? I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know much about Kuwait.
Kuwait is just a very small country. I can give you all kind of crazy insights about it because
I would love to hear.
The Kuwaitis are probably one of our biggest allies in the Middle East.
They are. Okay. Yeah. And, other than like Israel or something like that.
Yeah. And well, you know, they got invaded by Iraq.
Yeah.
Okay. And so there was
the first Gulf War. Was in the early 90s.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so I actually been deployed to Iraq or to Kuwait before that, a couple times.
Yeah.
And so I was there in '99 when Saddam Hussein threw out the UN inspectors. We deployed over there, and so I made some connections. So I got to spend some time out on the economy.
Yeah.
And, as a matter of fact, it's kind of a side story, not military related.
Sure, yeah.
I had a local doctor give me a name of a guy I should call while I was there. And I'm busy, I'm running 90 miles an hour, and the embassy calls and says, you got a Colonel Sullivan there, he needs to call this guy.
Okay.
So I pull out my phone number, it's the same guy. So it turns out it was this doctor's cousin, and he just happened to be married to the vice emir's daughter, and he was in charge of their National Guard.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, and for a National Guardsman to fly into Kuwait and get a call from an embassy to make this connection, I mean, it's one of those like, how's, you know, and I was a lieutenant colonel at the time, and they're going, how in the world did you meet it? Well, in the Arab world, if you say to a family member, look this guy up and take care of him, they do it.
It's not just like in America, we might just say these things, hey, call me when you're in town, we'll have dinner,
bingo.
Or this, that. But when in the Arab community, they mean this, and that's pretty cool. Yeah.
So it was an interesting, so I got to kind of learn the other side of the house and got to meet the vice emir and do some social.
You like the Kuwaiti
things.
people are good people, a lot of love in that country,
So,
it seems
very
like.
much so. And I worked with so my first tour in full-time deployment, I worked with the Kuwaiti Air Defense guys. See, there's only 3 countries in the world that have ever shot down a tactical ballistic missile, and that's the United States of America, Israeli, and Kuwait.
Wait, so okay,
Scud missiles.
So a Scud missile that's flying independently in the air, a little missile. I mean, the size of a how big are missiles?
Scud missiles they literally go in and out, and they're very destructive. But they're an area target. They're not necessarily a point-to-point target.
Oh, okay, all right.
But you only got seconds to react. So the Patriot missile system is set up to, I mean, it's all automatic.
Yeah.
It
locks on with the heat or something like that.
Locks on when they catch it on the radar, and
Yeah.
a lot of that's classified. I can't
Of course,
talk about,
of course, certainly. Oh, I'm sure there's so much glad. You know anything about Area 51? Okay, we'll keep that for down the line.
But so, that's So, and they were very good forces, and so I reacted with them. Heck, we met once a week, and we coordinated training. We coordinated all kind of things.
Yeah.
And so. And I got invited to some of their social events and so on and so forth.
Oh, so you got a glimpse into the culture and the food
right.
and all that stuff. That's very interesting. Was there a lot of American culture about in their society, like movies and music, and were people wearing Levi's blue jeans? Or?
Well, yeah, I mean, but under their,
under their more Arab style garb.
Arab style, and most of the senior guys were educated in America or in Great Britain. And
oh, okay. Well, like in our private universities, Oxford and Yale or whatever.
And of course trained in the military training.
Yeah.
But just great people.
A lot of English just spoken, it seems like.
Yeah, and of course, and I also went into Saudi Arabia a couple times, and so I kind of did the Middle East thing as part of my duties.
Yeah. And so, is it a huge culture shock? Was it a big?
Yeah.
I mean, Saudi Arabia, I don't even know where to begin. It seems like that would be even.
Saudi Arabia was the one place that I went where I did not feel comfortable.
Really? Yeah. Now, from a safety thing, or from
when
you say
where in Kuwait you felt like people respected you.
Okay, you were a welcome guest.
Right.
You didn't feel that way.
Saudi Arabia, you were kind of, in my opinion, looked at as an outsider, and I didn't obviously spend as much time in Saudi Arabia, but at one time when CENTCOM headquarters was going to be set up in Saudi Arabia, CENTCOM being the central command of the armed forces of the United States in the central command or central Asia, and that got nixed.
Because everyone was kind of like, this might not be the best idea.
Saudi Arabia nixed.
Oh, Saudi Arabia nixed it. Okay, they were like, this might not be the best idea. Okay, well, there you go. But you've been out all around the world, it seems, because, like you just said, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and then you have 4 years active duty as a Pershing missile officer in Germany. Can you tell us, can you give some insight into what that is like?
I worked with the German Air Force. I was the nuclear end of the Persian missile system, which only shoots nukes.
Wow, okay. They have the big boys.
Only shoots nuclear. And I lived on the German economy, worked with the German Air Force who had that mission. So it was, and that is a strategic weapon. So early in my career, I did things on the strategic level. So it was really interesting to apply that as I moved up the ranks, because you have the strategic level and then you have the tactical level, basically. And the tactical level is where the fighting gets done, but the strategic level is, the plans, the why, the wherefore, how it all comes together. So you got to understand that command structure. Back in those days, it was NATO, so you had the Supreme Allied Commander, and for a typical American soldier, they understand the chain of command in the U.S. Army side of the house, but not necessarily on the NATO side.
Interesting.
So it was a very interesting.
Certainly. You mentioned, this is the second time you mentioned the difference between strategic and tactical, and I never thought about it that way. And so do you think that generals, because of maybe their own personal interests, gravitate towards becoming more into one of those things than the other, or do they kind of have to have an equal passion for both? Or
one feeds the other, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, you come up through the ranks. You really don't start working at the strategic level until you're, for instance, the Army War College. To become a general, you have to be a graduate of one of the war colleges.
Which is West Point, Citadel. Is that
the U.S. Army War College, which I have my master's.
Oh, okay. It's just called. Sorry, that's its own thing.
That's its own thing.
Okay.
It's fully accredited university, so to speak, but its own strategic studies. So you look at the big picture. You look at politics, and you look at government influence, and you look at
the whole wide
culture.
scope.
You look at all the whole wide scope and how those decisions flow down from the Congress to the Department of Defense,
Yeah.
and how that affects policy and strategy in taking the mission. So
Yeah.
if you know, Vietnam is probably a good example of where we never really took a strategic look because we were fighting it at the tactical level, and there was a lot of influences from a lot of different areas that we weren't allowed to, as American soldiers, to go fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if you don't capture those, if you don't understand rather those other outside forces, it's going to really hinder their tactical.
Yeah.
And getting back to George Washington for a minute, was reading that when he was in the British Army during the French and Indian War, he actually kept. I think it was Caesar Augustus's notes with him about fighting the Gauls in Britain, and he was utilizing some of those ways of thinking about, because they were battling the Native Americans and the French teamed up with them. So
The
tactics.
tactics.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when you're studying those strategic concepts, are you guys generals are still going back and reading these ancient texts like a Sun Tzu, The Art of War?
One of the big. That's why I visited Gettysburg, because they actually schedule a tour of Gettysburg to talk about how the strategic and the tactical come together.
I see now. I've only been to Gettysburg once. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna do a special tour. That's something they just offer there that you can just do.
Well,
or is this a special general thing?
War College.
Okay,
the War College took us there.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
and I'm sure. And so at a place like that, you make lifelong friends. I'm sure people that you still.
The same way at the Citadel. I mean, the Citadel, you go through some experiences you're never going to get anywhere else.
Yeah.
The fourth class system and becoming a plebe and
I love that term,
kind of
plebe,
taking you down a few levels.
Break you down so they can build you up, right? Is that the idea?
Yeah. I mean, so like this year is my 45th reunion from the Citadel.
Wow.
So
God bless you.
And I have so many lifelong friends that we all started together at the Citadel.
As young guys, and now here you are.
And we're scattered all over the world,
wow.
But hearing from them, hey, make sure we'll see you at the reunion, that kind of stuff.
That's really cool. That's really cool. All right, we're going to take a quick break from our conversation. We're going to hear a word from our sponsors, and we will be back with you in a minute. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Chad Crawford, and I love getting outdoors in Florida. While traveling, I found a place more people should know about, Lake County, located in north central Florida, just outside of Orlando. This nature lover's paradise has over 300,000 acres of outdoor beauty and 1,000 named lakes. From camping to kayaking to world-class fishing, Lake County, it's real Florida, real close. Go to visitlakefl.com/doflorida and plan your own outdoor adventure today.
You're listening to the Lake County Historical Society podcast.
All right, and we are back with you. We are speaking with Brigadier General Tim Sullivan. Sir, thank you for being on the show today. So I wanted to ask about your service during Hurricane Andrew. And for those of our listeners who don't know about it, I'm sure that's not the case, but it was the strongest landfalling hurricane in decades. It hit in August in 1992. It was the most costliest hurricane to make landfall anywhere in the U.S. It was surpassed by Katrina in 2005, but at that point, this was the biggest deal. It's described as looking like a war zone by, I believe that was President George Bush at the time. It took place during the 1992 presidential campaign, which kind of made things interesting at the time, I'm sure. So give us because you were serving with the National Guard and you were deployed to Hurricane Andrew. Do I have that?
Right. Well, it was such a big deal. For instance, if you know anything about military structure, you have companies and batteries, and then they have battalions, and then you have brigades, and then you have headquarters above brigades. And at no time had the Florida National Guard been deployed for a hurricane when we ever had to carry or call out a brigade level. So it had never been done before.
Wow.
And so when we arrived, just a few days over, and I rode out the storm in an armory in Fort Myers, Florida, and then got directed to go to South Florida, and rode there, met up, and they detailed us out to literally Homestead.
How do you travel down there in a time?
Well, we have all our own vehicles. You know.
Oh, you were just driving.
Tactical
Okay.
vehicles.
Oh, tactical vehicles.
Yeah,
Okay.
we got Humvees, and see, the unique thing about the military is we're self-sufficient.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah. So we have hundreds of vehicles. We have our own cook section, for instance.
Yeah.
So we're totally self-sufficient.
Yeah.
So.
The water guy, the guys who can make water out of anything, right?
Oh, yeah. We dig for wells and waters, and water buffaloes. And fuel.
Yeah.
I mean, we fuel ourselves. Well, don't forget, there's no electricity. Everything's gone. And so we rolled in, moved from Tamiami Park basically down to Homestead, and I had to pick a place to put a headquarters.
This is a big old convoy, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
I have. You have about. I guess 450, 500 soldiers assigned.
Wow.
Okay. And so we get there, and you literally, there's no street signs, everything's blown away.
Yeah.
You know.
You don't know where you're going. The street signs are gone, so
Right.
you have to
We
literally...
literally got the Florida Highway Patrol actually led us to where we were going.
Wow. Because they knew, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I had one young captain, one of my assistant operations officer, who had grown up in Homestead, and so he knew how to get there. And as a matter of fact, it's interesting. A kind of a side story is he was nervous as a cat on a hot tin roof, and I couldn't. And for him, that was highly unusual. Usually, cool, calm, collected.
Yeah.
You know, and I finally just pulled him off to the side and said, "What's going on with you, man?" And he goes, "You know, my mom still lives here, and I hadn't heard from her."
Oh, man. So he's thinking about his mom and his family.
So I go, go find. I said, "I got to do a recon of the area. Go find her." And of course, he found her, and everything was fine, and all that kind of stuff. But
then he was able to get back to his normal self after that.
Yeah. And so what happened is because we were the first on the scene, the Florida National Guard formed two task forces. We had Task Force South and Task Force North. And so my battalion had 5 under battalions assigned to it. So and of course we're not equipped to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're used to where I had 400 or 500. Now I got
5 times
1,500.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And so we're setting up and reacting, and then it was such a big deal that we had to figure out how they could get more resources there and more bodies. I mean, you literally needed
boots
people
on the ground
to pick up sticks and clean up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was the first time in the United States military deployment because it came such a big deployment that the National Guard was the first on the scene for this deployment, and then they brought in the active duty. So the 10th Mountain Division, was 2-star general led, was overlaid in my area.
Yeah.
So I had liaisons to the 10th Mountain. I had liaisons to the civilian population. And so we were doing anything and everything. I mean, to the point that we were directing where the aid were, the people coming in from all over the place. One of the better stories I can tell you is we were out of everything. I mean, we're just running ragged. I don't have a soldier I can send anywhere. I'm just totally out of logistics, and I mean, I could help people fuel their vehicles. We were fueling every law enforcement vehicle because they didn't have,
And you had your own independent gas supply with you.
Right. And so, make a long story short, one of my favorite times was we were set up right behind a blown out McDonald's in Homestead.
Yeah.
And the McDonald's Corporation gave us full reign. You do whatever you need to do. So we hooked up our military generators and got it back up.
Yeah, really? So you're getting Big Macs and
Hey, we didn't have Big Macs. We didn't have that much power.
Yeah.
But we had a place to operate at.
Yeah. Oh, because the building was still kind of there.
The building was still there, and of course, there's so much craziness going on that we probably saved that building from being raked over the coals for everything.
Yeah, okay. Because there was a lot of looting and stuff going on.
Yeah,
there's people. There's always going to be the people who take advantage of a situation.
Right, and we helped. We did everything. We helped law enforcement. We helped humanitarian services, and the humanitarian story I was going to tell you was we were out of everything, and this group shows up and says, "We're a Christian relief group from Sebring, Florida," and they go, they said, so we can feed probably 300 people. We got medical, we got this, we got that. And I'm going, and I would say that morning, they showed up in the afternoon. That morning, I had this same captain I was telling you about found this migrant camp where there were migrants who didn't speak English and had nothing. They were out of everything. They got babies, they got families and all that, and about 300 people. And so this group from Sebring shows up. Man, it was it's like, something and those people came back to see me all the time. So we directed them down there. They took care of themselves, totally self-sufficient.
Yeah.
And it was just an amazing process to see the good and the bad in people.
Yeah, the good and the bad. Stuff like that highlights the beautiful parts of humanity and the not so beautiful parts. So when you guys literally set up your own small city, it seems like, right? I mean, you're talking about you have gas, you got food, you got electricity.
Yeah, we had we basically had I had on one side my command and control, on the other side of the road, what is that, A1A or whatever, US1 that goes south to the Keys. And on the other side, I had my logistics guys set up where we were fueling and all that kind of stuff. So it was, and then I had force protection because one of the issues with active duty is because of the posse comitatus, they're not allowed to come in with federal troops armed.
Because there's something in the Constitution about that.
Right, because that would be. They can only do that in the event of an insurrection or something.
So
anyway, so the active duty was doing humanitarian stuff, and we were doing force protection and law enforcement, et cetera, and because it's martial law during that period. So the curfews, we enforcing the curfews. I had soldiers with with police officers and enforcing the curfew, and the curfew was from like 11 at night till 5 in the morning, and so
which is certainly reasonable.
Oh yeah. And then you had all the humanitarian stuff that went on and directing those. I mean, I had the Salvation Army, the Red Cross, and we coordinated all that. So it was a major operation that we were being run through, basically a headquarters that was set up to run 400 people. I had roughly 4,000.
Wow! So you guys really had to. That's quite a story. So when they say that it was described as looking like a war zone, this pretty much. It seems like what if a bomb had went off, you guys would all be doing the same exact thing, pretty much. I mean, this was like a war zone, right? It was the aftermath of a war zone.
Like, heck, at that time, I hadn't really been to a war zone in 1992.
Yeah.
But when I went to, in '99, I got to go to Kuwait, and there were still areas from the 90 war, and it reminded me of that. I mean,
the shells of buildings,
and
just two walls up, and
I mean, it's just amazing. For instance, you see a guardrail, and the guardrail would have aluminum wrapped around it from where the hurricane force winds just literally wrapped something I couldn't do with my hands
Yeah.
and you couldn't do,
Yeah.
and probably 10 people couldn't
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
There was a
The wind air just did it on its
There's
own.
a 50-foot sailboat yacht in the middle of the mangroves. You know, nobody knows how it got there. You know,
When Mother Nature wants to flex her muscles,
Oh, yeah.
she's got some big guns to show off. Yeah.
Towers, you know, like that had, well, radio towers, I guess, but steel towers just twisted down to nothing on
Wow.
the ground. It was
Yeah.
just amazing. So it was as close to a war zone, and then people lived through that. You
Yeah.
know, people stayed in their house. Some
Yeah.
people stayed in their houses, and practically every home was, you know, totally destroyed.
Yeah.
Or, you know, or
Yeah.
met the requirement to be totally destroyed. So it was it changed a lot of people's lives. And,
Oh my God, I'm sure.
It's just like you said. You saw the best and the worst of people at that time.
Yeah.
And we had to manage that. You
Yeah.
know, that was,
That's interesting. And they say that it negatively affected President George Bush from getting reelected, even though he did pretty good during this.
Yeah, he was there. I actually got to shake hands with
Did
him.
you really? Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because I was at a briefing that he came through Homestead, and but it's just Florida has led emergency operations since '92.
Yeah.
We learned so much during that time, and you know, my time in the National Guard, for
Yeah.
instance, when you mentioned some other hurricanes, when it went through Louisiana,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we actually sent people out there to help them, and a lot of us had been through Hurricane Andrew, and you could see the same in their minds. Man, what do we do? Where do we go?
Yeah.
How do we do this?
But you guys had those answers.
But we had, you know,
Or at least an idea.
Yeah, you got to do this. You got to work with the civilian authorities, because we called it our military support to civilian authorities
Yeah.
mission.
Yeah.
And it was just eye-opening. So not only was it in Hurricane Andrew did we do that first major deployment where the active duty came in after the
Yeah.
National Guard. You know, those lessons learned were
Applied
passed
to-
on for forever and ever.
It became SOP for the whole
Yeah.
country. So what Florida really is, we are the hub of learning how to deal with some of these major
Yep.
natural disasters.
I actually had Department of the Army people come to my headquarters during the late part of the Hurricane Andrew, and came in and sat down and said, Major Sullivan, we're just here to observe. And I'm going, well, who are you? You know, and they got all these orders and credentials, and they're Department of the Army policy makers, and they wanted to learn how we did it, and because it was amazing. And then, and believe it or not, that experience at Hurricane Andrew paid dividends later on in my career, and going to an exercise in which that same 2-star general for 10th Mountain was now a 3-star general and commander of 3rd Army, and another one that I got put in a position that I didn't have time to read anything because the active duty couldn't go, so they called the National Guard. I showed up, you know, hat in hand, so to speak.
yeah.
And of course his question was, and of course he knew me he knew I was a traditional M-Day soldier.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, well, when did you get the order to be here? And I said, well, last night, sir. And so he said, and I haven't had access because it's a classified operation. I said, I haven't even had the opportunity to sit in a classified and read the operations order and what the heck I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And your staff is directing me to, and he just put his hand up and said, we're going to fix that, Sullivan. Anyway, but because of my experience with him in Hurricane Andrew, you know, he said, hey, he knew something was wrong.
Yeah. It's interesting. Let me take this opportunity
Yep.
just to ask you about, and I want to go into in a minute, we're going to leave all the military talk because there's so much to discuss, and I want to make sure we get to some of the Lake County stuff as well. But the STAR process with generals, so what does it take to go from, what does that kind of mean? When they go from 1 star to 2 star to 3 star, is there a direct path, or is someone awarded stars because of outstanding service? You know what I mean?
All of the above.
Okay. There's many ways to get your stars. And
there's only, and I don't even know what the number is, but there's only so many general officer slots in the United States Army.
The finite set.
There's a finite number. So you can't pin a star on until, one, you have one of those slots, and two, you have to have all the qualifications to do that. It's, for instance, you have to be nominated through the National Guard to the Army. The Army has to recommend you to the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense recommends you to the Senate, and the President signs off as the final authority.
So something that the President of the United States has signed off on all of those guys, right. And he's probably met all of them,
yeah.
right?
I mean, there have been times when a whole list, because it's usually on a year group kind of thing, might not make it through the process.
Wow.
So,
well, this is the highest of the high command. I mean, these are the gentlemen who are pretty much going to be in charge of our safety and the world's safety.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. All right, well, after all the service you've done for our country, then you've continued to serve our beautiful county here in Florida. In Lake County, I came here because it's really a wonderful place. It's a slice of real American life. That they're trying to take away from us, that I want to preserve, definitely. So you were a 2-term Lake County Commissioner. I wanted to discuss now. We don't have to get into all of we know there's a lot of drama surrounding the Kirby Smith statue. So so without getting into that, but I would like to know what are some of your challenging issues that you have come across your desk, and some of your most kind of rewarding times as a county commissioner as well. You can start wherever. You can start wherever you want. You can start. While you think about that, I guess in the back of your mind, how did you kind of come across the realization that you want to become county commissioner? Put that way.
Well, I made the mistake of telling some people one time after I left the school board, and that I had been approached to run for different offices, and I said, well, when I get out of the military, then I'll have time to do that.
Yeah.
And so a county commissioner knew she wasn't going to seek re-election. It was an open seat, and a number of people approached me and said, well, gosh, we know you're retired now from the military, and so it'd be a good time. And I always felt like I brought something to the table because of my vast experience.
Certainly.
Not only just as a financial advisor, for instance. One of the first things I did as a county commissioner, I made us relook at all our bonds, because interest rates had gone down. We refinanced all our bonds based on my first term idea that, hey, let's take a look at these. And we saved us about $400,000 a year, plus millions of dollars over the course of the loans, just
wow.
to that one thing.
It's amazing. So it's amazing what good leadership and competent leadership can really do for a country or a county or whatever.
And I think probably the tough thing is people expecting local government to do things that we're not set up to do.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I do. So give me an example.
In the area of healthcare, we'll use healthcare. That's a good example. Florida is one of 22 states that local government participates in the cost of Medicaid.
Okay.
Okay. So that bill to the Lake County Board of County Commissioners is $4.3 million.
Yeah, it's quite.
So if you expand Medicaid in the $800,000, that's going to be a direct cost to the taxpayers of Lake County.
Yeah.
And so taking, and I use that in the context of what you expect government to do for you. So oftentimes you have to stay within what your mission is. Which we talked about in the military side of the house, but. And so it's very difficult to put that realization across to the average public, because if somebody's suffering in some way, shape, or form, and they think the county government should be taking care of it. That's a really difficult thing.
Yeah.
And then you get into the other side of the issue of like private property rights versus, government and so just making all that come together, the art of compromise unfortunately has to be there.
Yes.
So that you can move forward.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be just running around in circles, stuck in the mud.
People.
Nothing gets done.
People didn't understand that. So you have all the constitutional officers.
Yeah.
Okay, you got the supervisor of elections, the property appraiser, the tax collector, the sheriff. Well, that's where 60 to 80% of the tax funds go.
Yeah. To the sheriff.
To this, 60% to the sheriff.
Yeah. That's a
Right,
big, large,
right.
large
And
part
it's
of
a
the
large
budget.
sum. But law enforcement is something people support. And so it's just difficult to pull all that together, and the economy being good and selling that to the public to get reelected or not get reelected. Because people think only about the tax end of it and not the policy end and the strategy of
the strategic and the tactical, right? It's almost bringing back, and I'm seeing a similarity between. It seems like all your experiences as in the military and being a general was perfect training for a Lake County commissioner, because, like you had said before, you're dealing with all the different battalions, infantry, all these different things, and here you are now. You're dealing with the tax collector, you're dealing with the land appraiser and the sheriff, and all these different units that are kind of like.
So you had to make policy that fit your mission, so to speak, to carry that out. And policy is very, very difficult to talk about because it's this
riles everybody up, right?
Yeah,
Everyone's got their own opinion about policy. So do you think that, that was the perfect training? All your, you must have really tapped into those resources quite a bit.
Well, yeah, my background and experience, being a city commissioner in Fruitland Park was tremendously helpful.
Yeah, and that was before. Okay,
that was in the 80s.
So you were the Fruitland Park Commissioner and Mayor, correct?
Right.
At the same time, or those two different?
In the 1980s.
Okay.
So I had a big. So the last time I left the Lake County School Board, I got appointed to the school board and ran for one term.
Okay.
Went to Hurricane Andrew and got unelected.
Yeah.
Which the school board is a very, very difficult job.
I'm sure.
It's because really the state sets the tone. You're just the people that
kind of carry out their marching orders.
All the money comes from the state.
Yeah.
And they tell you what your ad valorem's got to be. They tell you
they tell you what your curriculums are. Pretty much they say all that, or
that's the one area that you had
a little
discretion. Leeway, but it's all. But if you didn't play the game, then the funding source didn't come down.
And the funding dries out, and if you don't play the game, that's what always happens. If you don't play the game, the funding dries out.
So that's that experience was helpful to me. And when I was a county commissioner, worked very closely with the school board on a number of different items. And so that experience of being a school board member was very helpful to me as a county commissioner to help them improve the schools. Because if you're turning out a good work product in the schools, then you're creating a workforce. If you're creating a workforce, then we can get business and industry to come here. Business and industry helps pay the tax burden.
Yes.
And so it's a big, huge piece of the puzzle that there's no one correct answer. And so dealing with people who don't want growth when it's understandable in some way, shape, or form, because none of us want to change our way of life. If we
and the 80s was a time of growth here in Central Florida, major time of growth.
Yeah, so, and we've just experienced that again, in the last 10 years. So pulling all that together, and you're only one of five too. It's not like being a general where you get to make the. You have a mission and you got all the rules and regulations, but but you're the deciding factor.
Yeah.
As a county commissioner, you got 4 other people.
It's a little bit more
right.
diplomatic, I guess,
Absolutely.
suppose. And as,
so there's some compromise, and that has to go on to make it happen.
Now, what is the difference between a commissioner and a mayor? Because it seems like they would be synonyms, but they're.
Well, you're both elected officials. The mayor is really the head of government. For instance, at the county commission, the chairman is the mayor.
Okay.
Okay, for all intents and purposes.
Mm-hmm.
So same way in a city, the mayor. In some cities, the mayor is elected as the mayor, but in most cities, you choose your own mayor. In other words, the 5 of you say, well, we want you to be the mayor, and so you're elected for 1 year, and then vice mayor, et cetera. So it's very similar, but as the mayor or even the chairman of the, you're the kind of the focal point. You're the guy that gets out or gal that goes out and meets the public and deals with the press and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Wow. So, and I'm sure you utilized a lot of, getting back to what you said at the beginning about the charm school, I'm sure that some of those charm school training stuff was crucial in your whole career. From Lake County Commissioner.
Absolutely. I mean, how to deal with the media.
Yeah, exactly.
That was one of the.
Because they're always trying to get you to say something that's right to trip you off.
I mean, even to the point of techniques. Actually, my favorite course at the Army War College, you get to take some electives, and mine was executive public speaking. And so
that became quite useful.
Absolutely, and part of that executive public speaking was dealing with the media.
Yeah.
And so you kind of got the military side of how to deal with the media. And I wish I'd have had that during Hurricane Andrew in some cases.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you wonder, how does the military devise how to deal with the media plans? I guess they have their whole board of strategic planners thinking, how do we...
For instance, if you know what the strategy is and you know what the mission is, then you try to answer the questions, and sometimes you take the questions away from them. You don't necessarily, to be honest, you might answer a question with a question.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
That's like what they do on
so
the...
you kind of turn the tables to talk about what you want to talk about. I mean, some of the politicians that you see,
I was going to say,
very
sounds
polished
very,
at it. Very polished at it.
Yeah.
And,
they are quite, it's an art form.
It is an art form. And so the whole process, and it's one big community, and that was helpful to me.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's probably would be even more helpful to someone today, because our local media is pretty good. I mean, I don't have any issues.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But that training and background helped me through everything that I deal with.
Yeah.
I mean, you might say that I probably didn't get quoted in the papers a lot because maybe the way I answered the question.
Maybe you didn't give them quotes they wanted to use, because it was there you go.
Got it.
Yeah. All right, General. Well, I've had an excellent time speaking with you today. Thank you so much for coming in. Is there anything else that I didn't touch upon that you kind of want to tell us about or share? I think I've gone through most of my stuff that I wanted to touch upon with you.
I would say that I've had a great life in Lake County. I've been able to fulfill a whole bunch of goals and objectives, and that you get. I love Lake County. It's where I chose to live.
Yeah, same here.
So that's where I raised my children, and my grandchildren are still here. And
it's a wonderful place.
So it is a great place, and it's going to change, and so everybody needs to be, and just where we're sitting, this historical museum. People need to come in here and see some of this history.
Definitely, yes, for sure.
The citrus industry and how the citrus industry drove really so much that happened in Lake County for years and years and years, but we're not there anymore. You know, there are other, and now agriculture is still a very big part of what we do. But you know, it's different, and it's gonna be different 20 years from now. So.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's what happens.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Well, listen, our last podcast had John Jackson. I think our next podcast is going to be with some sort of a alligator or crocodile hunter. So we're really covering. We're going to get into all the cool things about Lake County. You know what I mean? There is a whole scope of wide things. The super interesting people, the nature, the land, our history, the Indians, the Spanish settlers, the crackers. I plan on diving into it all because it's all really cool. So
sounds great.
Yeah,
sounds great.
Thank you, General, for thank you, General, for being on the show today. Rather, it was a pleasure, and everyone out there, make sure to tune in for our next episode. Come on down to the museum, check out our stuff. Have a ball here. History is a great time, and we will catch you on the next show. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Visit our website at lakecountyhistoricalmuseum.org. Don't forget to find us on Facebook. Serving the community of Lake County and preserving its rich history for many years to come. Thanks for listening. Y'all come back now.